Is this the result of maybe a change in the political winds? Or is this because half of Ukraine is in the dark right now? I mean, what say you, Scott Ritter?
Well, let's start with the nuclear side. I mean, this predates what the current crisis over the New START treaty, or the predates the current um,
Conflict.
no, predates the current reality on the battlefield.
Okay.
If we go back to the March April timeframe, when the United States suddenly went, whoa, Russia didn't steamroll them. Maybe Russia sucks. Maybe we can extend this conflict and hurt Russia and make pain come to Russia and all this stuff. Um, we started to double, triple down on sanctions. And one of the sanctions that we imposed was restrictions on the flights of Russian civilian air transports to the United States. Um, well, because we never think anything through, what that meant is that Russian inspectors who fly to the United States on these civilian transports to carry out their inspection tasks per the New START treaty um, suddenly couldn't arrive. They couldn't even come on military transport. They couldn't come at all.
Yeah.
But the United States went, well, that's not a treaty problem. That's a sanctions problem. Don't blame us. But we're going to still send our inspectors to Russia to do their thing. And the Russians went, no, that's like a one-sided implementation. So we're just going to stop all inspections for now. Since you won't let our inspectors in, we're stopping all inspections. And the Americans went, well, what? You stopped inspections? Huh? And suddenly tensions arise, and people are, Russia's going to use tactical nukes, Putin's threatening nukes, and they all know that's not true, but they're all like, but what are we doing about the nuclear issue? I mean, what are the Russians up to? Because we don't have inspectors going in anymore.
Yeah.
And since that time, there's been a back channel that's been run by William Burns, the current director of the CIA, and he has been meeting with his Russian counterparts in various locations. In July, we know that he flew to Armenia. And what's interesting about his trip, which was the first ever visit by a director of the CIA in Armenia, is that before he arrived, teams of U.S. and Russian arms control specialists were meeting in Yerevan to talk about how do we not only solve this problem of no inspectors now, but how do we move forward? Because in 2026, this New START treaty expires. And yes, there could be an automatic 5-year extension if both parties agree, but the Russians have certain big problems with how America's failing to live up to its obligations, not just in terms of the inspectors, but how we account for taking reclassifying B-52 strategic bombers. Suddenly we're saying, well, they're no longer nuclear capable. They're conventional. And the Russians are going, no, they're nuclear capable. You didn't change anything. Or the submarines where we're supposed to permanently disable launch tubes. And the Russians are going, no, you can reactivate that this quick. Not only are the Russians right, we brag about it. If the treaty ended, we could rapidly bring it up to bear. And the Russians are like, that's not what the treaty is supposed to accomplish. It's permanent elimination, not faking us out. So the Russians are like, you guys aren't really serious about arms control. Meanwhile, the United States is saying a lot of the weapons that Russia just deployed, this new strategic one, aren't covered under New START. So if New START is just a 5-year extension, the Russians will have accrued a whole new strategic advantage that's not limited by the treaty that's supposed to regulate strategic advantages. So now the United States is suddenly getting serious about arms control. And so Burns met there. Burns just met in Ankara with his counterpart. And again, the number one issue is Burns isn't talking Ukraine. Everybody's like, oh, the back channel's about Ukraine. Let me just give you a pro hint. The Ukraine debate is an internal debate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's like if I were going to go to Oxford and debate somebody on an issue, but beforehand, it's the practice debate. It doesn't count because the other side's not engaged. And then I show up at Oxford to find out the other side said the debate's over because I don't care what you think. I came to the debate and said there's only one voice. It's my voice. It's the only one that counts. Get off the stage. And that's what Russia's at right now. They don't care that Sullivan is running around playing negotiating games. They don't care that the State Department, the U.S. Department of Defense are having this little internal debate. Russia doesn't care. Russia has 10 to 15 division equivalents of troops showing up on the battlefield next month. That's all Russia cares about, is that reality and what it's going to do to change the total reality in Ukraine, and the fact that Ukraine is being shut down, light switch by light switch. It ain't functioning as a state. Entire cities might have to be evacuated this winter because the people who live there will freeze to death. This is the reality. So Russia doesn't care about that. And Burns doesn't care because that's not his game. He's letting Sullivan play that stupid game over here. Burns cares about the real issue, which is the United States and Russia going to prevent them from creating a situation where they destroy the world? And the best way to prevent that is through arms control. So now there's a discussion right now about how do we get New START back on track, because you can't talk about extending this treaty until you fix the treaty. Yeah. So it's not just about getting inspectors back to work, but Russia's feeling its oats right now. And Russia's saying, okay, so we got the inspector thing, but now what about the B-52 accounting issue? What about the submarine accounting issue? Because I don't know if we're that. See, Russia's sort of growing a lot more confident. Russia's always had this complex of, oh, we're Russians, they're Americans, and, gosh, we got to listen to what the Americans say. We'll compromise because we don't want to hurt the Americans' feelings. We're nervous about American power. And Russia's sitting there going, my man, I looked in the locker room. You ain't that 28-year-old stud you thought you were. You're a flabby 58-year-old man. We ain't that intimidated by you anymore.
I resemble that remark. Stop that.
So do I. Had a couple of years.
Go ahead.
The point is, the Russians now are basically saying, yeah, we'd like to extend the New START treaty, but not the way it's currently operating. We're not happy with that. So if you want a new treaty, especially if you want a treaty that starts to incorporate these other weapon systems, what are you putting on the table? And Russia has some serious demands, and they're letting those demands be known to Biden. For instance, I don't know if Russia is going to go along with another strategic arms reduction treaty that doesn't include the B-61 bombs that are in Europe. Russia's like, no, you don't get to keep 120 nuclear weapons in Europe for free anymore. There will be a price paid. If you're going to keep them, then we're not going to negotiate. If you want us to do X, Y, and Z, those got to go now. This is going to be a problem for Biden because now we get into NATO nuclear strategy and all that. But the Russians are tired of playing the American negotiating game. Yeah. The day of, oh, we don't want to hurt the American feelings. Oh, we have to make sure that we keep them at the table. Because that was the whole Russian thing. We got to keep the Americans at the table. But the Russians are like, no, America's got to work to keep us at the table. It's changed. It's like the husband who wooed his wife, and now he's going through his midlife crisis, and the wife is like, I'm sort of tired of you. Now the husband has to convince the wife to stay. Russia's feeling its oats. I think that this is what's going on with nuclear agreement. I think the United States realizes that it has allowed arms control to deteriorate to the point where Russia is willing to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And that the United States needs arms control now more than Russia needs arms control. So it's going to be an interesting negotiation.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is essentially separate, almost like a back channel, not issue, but it's definitely separate from, the Republicans getting up there after gaining, a small majority in Congress and Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, hey, we're not going to write a blank check, but yet in the lame duck, I think they're trying to get through another $37 billion or something like that. And I just want to give people some perspective here where I live in Florida. We got ravaged by a hurricane, and, Sanibel Island and Fort Myers Beach, all these places are destroyed. And I heard a news report this morning saying it's going to take about $100 million to fix and to help, this region recover completely. And I'm just putting these numbers together. Okay, 100 million sounds like a lot of money, but $37 billion going again, which would, I think, put our total spending, and you might have better numbers than I have, Scott, but it would be 105 billion. Is that correct? Do you think it's
Yep.
Okay.
It's over 100 billion. Yeah.
All right. And so, I mean, you think they're going to get this through, by the way? Do you think they're going to get the funding through? What's your opinion on that?
No, I don't think so. Well, let me just, first of all, to the people of Florida
Yeah.
who are suffering right now, go through your closet and find some blue cloth and some yellow cloth and cut them out and sew them together into a Ukrainian flag and put it outside your house. And then you could even handwrite Slava Ukraina on it. Do something because that's all you're going to goddamn get.
Yeah.
I'm not being mean to you,
No,
but
no,
for God's sake, don't you understand what's happening here? You don't count. You don't matter. You are irrelevant.
yeah,
No one cares about you. We care about Ukraine, though, you see. So that's why you should redefine yourself as Ukrainian.
yeah,
Go ahead and sew the flag on your shirt. Go on internet if you can get internet. I don't know what the connectivity is there, but put the little Ukrainian flag by your name. Do anything to make yourself feel good, but you
yeah.
ain't getting any money from the American government because it's all going to Ukraine. Slava Ukraina. Now, this is just ridiculous. But here's the thing. Um, Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be asking some questions
Yeah, I know.
her Republican counterparts. And people like Jamie Raskin are no longer going to get a free ride. Old
Yep.
Jamie's going to have to answer why we've been sending money to the Nazis. And Marjorie's got some really nice videos that she can put up there
Yep.
about the Nazis and all the stuff, the reality that they exist. And other questions are going to be asked, like, why are we supporting Ukrainians who kill Russian prisoners of war? Do we support the Ukrainians who stuff Russian prisoners in the coffins while they're alive?
Yeah.
We can
Wow.
go on and on and on. We can, ask questions about, bring General Miley in. Hey,
Yeah.
General Miley, Mark, baby, uh, Bubba, I know you got to implement the policy, but you've been leaking information that says you want a negotiated settlement. Why, Marky? Why, buddy? Is it could be that we're losing the war and we're not going to win, Marky? Could it be that no matter how much money we send to Ukraine, it's just going to end up with a big Russian win? The W goes to Russia, the L goes to Ukraine, and everybody else supported them. And you know this, Marky, and yet you're going to stand here today and tell me you need $37 billion more to a losing cause? Are you an idiot? And the answer is yes, he is. And so is everybody else in the Biden administration. But again, I remind the citizens of Florida, these are the people that are
Yeah.
supposed to care about you, and they don't. They
Right.
don't care about it. It's not just Florida, it's anywhere. Hey, Chicago, you need help? You're not going to get it because you ain't Ukrainian. Now, some of you guys are, but shame on you, not for being Ukrainian, but for supporting this policy.
Yeah.
That taxpayer money should be going to solve the problems of Chicago. Flint, how's the water, Flint? How's the
Yeah.
water doing, Flint? Can you still drink? You can't drink it. How much does it cost for you to fix that water? I bet you it's nothing compared to the amount of money we're sending to Ukraine. We can go on and on. Homeless in California,
Yep.
homeless in Albany, New York, potholes in Albany. Hell, I'll just stick here in Albany. Albany sucks. Our infrastructure sucks. Our social programs suck. Our education sucks. We could use some of this money, but it's going to Ukraine in a losing cause. We know we can't win.
Yeah.
We know we can't win. We know we can't win, but they're going to still ask for money. I mean, this is like the drug addict, saying, I know I'm an addict, but I'm going to have to go mug somebody so I can continue to shoot the heroin in my veins. We're addicted to what? What are we? I don't quite understand. What Russophobia? Is
Yeah.
this the drug? Is this the narcotic? As long as we say, I hate Vladimir Putin, we get a buzz and we feel good. So we just keep saying, I hate Putin. I hate Putin. I hate Putin. I hate Russia. I hate more money, more money, more money. What the hell's going on in America today? We are brain dead as a nation.
Yeah.
Not only are we wasting money, but look at the cause we're wasting it on.
Yep.
My God, people, Stepan Bandera is a war criminal, and we're funding the people that parade his portrait as if he's George Washington. He's not.
Yeah.
He's despicable. His face should be erased from the pages of history. His name should never is Voldemort, the name that should never be said ever, because he is that evil. But we're breathing life. I'll give you something here. Got me on a roll. The Planck, it's a scouting organization.
Yep.
2019, the Ukrainian government, they're not Nazis, the Ukrainian government. They're not. They're Zelensky. He's a Jew. And Jews could never be Nazis.
No, no.
Never, ever, ever be Nazis. Capos. Don't worry about capos. Don't worry about the example of the Jews killing Jews in concentration camps working for the Germans. Don't worry about that. Forget that. Jews can't be Nazis. So this nice Jewish president, Zelensky, in addition to demanding that insisting in 2019 that they're going to go to war with Russia in the Donbass,
yeah.
Mr. Peace, they bring this organization called Plonkin, and it's the scouting organization. It's the third largest in Ukraine. The two largest they don't get to play. The third largest gets to play. Why? I don't know. We'll get to that in a second. But they're going to fund them. They're the only one that counts. But it's not just scouting. Every youth activity in Ukraine, if I'm at the middle school and I say I want to put on a middle school concert like we do in America, the kids come out with their little flutes and and they play their ridiculous songs, and some of them are pretty good, but I was horrible. But they're going to do that. It can only be done through the Plonk. Only. You want to play sports? Plonk. You want to do anything? Plonk. And now here it is. Plonk is Stepan Bandera's scouting group. Plonk is the scouting group that Bandera came up through when Bandera was recruiting his OUN people to murder hundreds of thousands of Poles, to murder tens of thousands of Jews, to murder hundreds of thousands of Russians. They came from the Plonk. The Plonk. The Plonk exists in America today. That place in Ellaville, New York, the Plonk. Those Nazi kids that wear their uniforms, the Plonk. The parade Stepan Bandera, it's alive and well here in the United States. In Canada, Chrystia Freeland, the wonderful Canadian Deputy Prime Minister, future NATO Secretary General, Plonk. She's a Banderist. She was raised as a Banderist. She worships Bandera, as they all do. That's the only scouting organization. They have mainstreamed Bandera amongst the children. And we're funding this. It is a Nazi regime. Ukraine is a Nazi regime run by a Jewish capo. Plain and simple. And if you're somebody like Jamie Raskin, who pretends to care about Holocaust Remembrance Day, because he sent out a tweet the same day he said there is no Nazis in Ukraine. If you're somebody like Chuck Schumer, who made Never Forget a mandatory part of New York State education so that every child raised in New York is taught about the Holocaust. Never forget, never let it happen again. I support that. Hey, Chuck, why are you funding the Nazis in Ukraine? Never forget. Hell, you're making sure the world will never forget because they're there right now killing people in your name using my money. This is disgusting. Disgusting.
That was a great rant. How did we get here though? You know what I mean? Like, how did we get to a point where what would be, I mean, other than psychosis or some kind of mental illness, why would you not have all the facts? Like, you're a member of Congress, you're Chuck Schumer, and you've got I'm sure he's getting intelligence briefings on who these people are and what, what their heritage is and what their belief system is. So is it that nobody knows, Scott? Like, you'd have to, like, Scott Ritter goes before Congress, which would be fantastic, right? I know that's not your favorite thing, but you could get up there and within 2 minutes, just like you did there, you could deconstruct all of this. The media, of course, would turn all the cameras off, and I don't know, maybe a couple of independent outlets would cover it. But is it that America has been gaslit now since February or even prior to that, like you said, Putin's just bad, Putin bad. And this goes back to Donald Trump when he said stuff like, hey, all he said was, hey, I'd like to get along with Putin. He didn't say that he was going to have a great relationship with Putin, although, he likes to boast and brag. And some of that was just him being, Donald Trump. But some of it was like, hey, yeah, we should get along with other countries. It's not bizarre to get along with North Korea or with Russia or some of these people around the world that, the United States over the years has branded as, hey, there's a Satan over here that we have to watch, and there's another one over there. And, the founders were like, don't go chasing monsters. And all we do, Scott, is chase monsters all over the place. And sometimes we end up, as you just illustrated there, we end up being the monster. We're the monster. And America can't we can't handle that. We just can't handle the fact that, American exceptionalism, we're the greatest country in the face. I keep hearing the flag, the flag. Well, what does the flag mean right now? What does that mean? My flag is upside down. I don't know about what your flag looks like. I love the flag, but my flag is in distress right now when I look at what we're doing to our own country, what we're doing to people. We're not doing due process. We're not doing like the normal things. We're intimidating parents going to school board meetings where people just have a vision for their own family and their own life, and they're coming under attack because their view, and Russia said some things. I think you actually posted a video about like the culture, and our culture has gone crazy. It's gone like there are extremes to everything. And I think all of that contributes to this battle, which isn't just a battle, a regional battle. I look at this as a battle for the entire planet, to be honest with you. I mean, that's why you have BRICS emerging. And that's why Russia's like, what, like you said, Russia probably thought, hey, we can't go this alone, that once they sanction us. But what they said is, what, we're going to learn to have our own booming economy. We're going to back our currency, which there are people like libertarian types. We were just cheering, like, they're going to back the currency. They're not just going to endlessly print money. I mean, where are you getting this money for Ukraine? It's not like we have it in the budget. So what are you running printing presses? It's coming out of it's the Federal Reserve. We're digitizing, monetizing, and here, like the Fed chairman, he was like, yeah, we just mark it up. I mean, the guy from, I forget, like 2 years ago, I did this video about this, and they asked him, so how do you get this money? He goes, well, it sounded like, he had a little chalkboard or something, but we just moved the needle up a little bit, and there's the money. And meantime, what's happening with inflation? What's happening? I mean, I don't know if you've been to a grocery store lately, but it's like it's sticker shock. You walk down an aisle, like, I used to buy this for like $4, and now it's $8. It's not just like 10% inflation. It's like 100%, 200% inflation. And I'm thinking, all of this, Scott, because we needed to teach Vladimir Putin a lesson. And we're teaching, what we're teaching? We're teaching, like you said, the people down here in Southwest Florida, people walking around with a grocery cart filled with their stuff because that's all they got left. And yeah, was it a smart idea to build on the ocean? We could have that debate, but that's not their fault. I mean, in a sense that, it's a natural disaster. So this is where Americans should be coming together. When I like the term America First. I think it's been bastardized a little bit because everybody just thinks of Donald Trump. And I think we can do better than that. I think we can really take care of Americans and put America first. But then you're accused of you're an isolationist. You don't understand foreign policy. We're an exceptional nation. There's the Monroe Doctrine. There's all these doctrines. And I'm just like, can we just take care of the homeless, dude? Why do veterans, for instance, have to suffer? There shouldn't be one veteran in this country that was sent off, or even volunteered rather, to go to one of these conflicts that ended up being a fool's errand. And that's the bottom line. And you could pick a conflict in the last how many years? And I sit here and I'm going, and instead of sending money to Ukraine, can we at least just stop and take care of our own house? And then we can reevaluate. We can at least do that. I mean, for me, I'm not interested in fighting a war in Ukraine. Whether you agreed with Russia going in, whether you didn't understand that they were kind of like surrounded and they felt that, NATO was out of control. And then the whole issue with the Donbass, which you mentioned, which few Americans understand that. The more people I talk to, I go, you understand the people in Eastern Ukraine getting shelled by people in the other part of the country for 7-8 years. And they're ethnically Russian from what I understand. And I think Russia was like, oh no, you shouldn't be doing this. And then you had the Minsk agreement, which just, we're not going to, they talk about treaties that maybe, the United States trust but verify. I mean, that's what Russia's probably like. Hey, I don't trust these people, and so, like you say, they're feeling more self confident. They look at our culture, they look at our out of control spending. Scott, it took us what 8 days to figure out the results of that election completely, like who is going to control Congress. They're probably thinking, what a screwed up country. So anyway, what are your
No,
thoughts on all of that? Sorry, I did a Scott Ritter there. Sorry.
oh, wonderful. I'm enjoying it. It's your show. So I think it's great.
But you're the guest. I'm supposed to my whole philosophy here, Scott, is to kind of set you up like I'm set the pins up and you just knock them down. I'm not supposed to be bowling. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to let you do all
It's a
the
bowling.
bowling.
This is bowling league. We both get the bowl. But no, I mean, just a couple things. Gosh, where to begin on that? Well, I'm going to start with just this about you talked about going to war.
Yeah.
Um, I'm in a I'm okay now, but when I was in a very bad mood
Yeah.
because on my Telegram channel somebody posted a video of four American servicemen in Poland walking through a mall, and somebody is harassing them with a camera, calling them niggers, nigger lovers. Don't
Oh.
There's a black man there. Don't have sex with the white girls in Poland. We don't want niggers here. We don't want Mexicans here. You guys are this. You guys are that. You guys are. And the four guys were getting irritated, but they kept walking. They didn't engage. They just kept walking. They didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
The thing is, men and women, American men and women join the military for different reasons.
Right.
I joined for purely patriotic reasons to serve my country.
Yeah.
Other people join for a combination of patriotic reasons, economic reasons. I can't, it's an individual decision. But when you join the military, you get you get trained to a certain skill set, but you don't get to pick where and when you get to use that skill set.
Yeah.
You don't get to pick your wars. You don't get to pick your fights. You don't get to pick anything. Uh, Ideally, you would spend 20 years in a career never deploying in anger, ever.
Yeah.
Ideally, we would create such a lethal military force that it serves as a deterrent in its own right to anybody who might think they want to wage war against America.
Right.
The cost of waging war is so high, why not pick the alternative, which is peace?
Yeah.
And ideally, we wouldn't abuse that to try and bully people and leverage people, that we would just be sitting there saying, we're here to work with you together.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to fight, we got Mike Tyson at his prime in the corner here, and we've been feeding him nothing but raw meat, and he's drooling and he's ready to go. But for 20 years, we don't let him go. That would be the ideal thing, but that's not the ideal thing. There's people out there in the world who know. For instance, ask the people of Pakistan after the earthquakes. Ask the people in not Tibet, but Nepal after the earthquake, when it was the American helicopters that flew in. It was American service members who came down and distributed humanitarian aid. Why? Because no other nation in the world can project military resources like we can. We can project ourselves anywhere in the world, and oftentimes we do it in good cause, just cause. And when you need the American service member there, they will be there. They will be there. Now, sometimes they're there when we don't need them. And sometimes they're asked to do things that they probably shouldn't be doing. It's not their fault.
Right.
They're a tool being used by the political people that we elect in office. And if you pick on, I'm just saying this straight up to anybody who follows me on Telegram, I will kick your ass off my channel that quick if you ever again denigrate an American service member. I'm not here to promote war.
Right.
But and if anybody follows me, they know darn well where I come from on my criticism of American policy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ever denigrate any man or woman who is wearing or has worn the uniform of the United States of America, I will kick you off my channel that quick. Free speech, not when it comes to criticizing American service members. Criticize American policy all you want.
Yep.
Don't pick on these guys. They don't deserve it.
Right.
If you don't want them in Poland, talk to the people who sent them to Poland.
Yeah.
Because these are the same guys, when called upon, will deploy to the Philippines to rescue people who are trapped in floods, deployed in Nepal to rescue people trapped under rubble, to deploy humanitarian goods, and to rescue you when you need to be rescued. You little liberal Americans, oh my God, we're stuck in the far corners of the world in a raging crowd of people who want to burn us and hang us and all that stuff. Oh, now you want the Marine Corps Osprey to show up and the Marines to run out under fire to rescue you and get you out. Now you think it's a good idea. But when we wanted to build that Osprey, you can't build that. That's a waste of money. You warmongering pieces of manure. And here's my other approach on peace.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the peace movement in America. I'm fed up with them because they're not a peace movement. Never have been.
Yeah.
They're a political movement disguised as a peace movement.
Yeah.
They
I know where you're going.
promote peace. They promote peace when the politician in charge isn't of the political stripe they want. For instance, George W. Bush was the worst president in the world. We support peace. Barack Obama was elected. Oh, we know there's no longer peace movement because he is peace personified, even though he's a bigger warmonger than George W. Bush. Oh, no. And today we have a peace movement right now. When we speak about Ukraine, suddenly, no, Slava Ukraina. Hey, screw you. It's a war. You know what I'm supporting now? And I'm serious about this. I support the war movement. I'm 100% behind the war movement because I'm not a pacifist.
Right.
I'm somebody who believes that you want to have a fight, I will fight you, and it ain't going to be fair. I will eviscerate you, destroy you. I will pee on your body. No, I won't, because that's a war crime. But the point is, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's going to be ugly on you, and I don't care. But here's why I promote the war party. Because anybody who understands war and is ready to wage war knows that it should never be waged, knows what the reality of it's going to be, knows what the cost that will be accrued by going to war, and therefore will demand that we exhaust every venue possible short of war before we go to war.
Right.
The war party hates war. The war party doesn't want war. The war party will only wage war when it's the last option available. And if we all supported the war party, we might not be in so many wars. But the peace party doesn't believe in peace. The peace party believes in politics. It believes that peace is convenient when the guy promoting the war is a Republican, but peace is breaking out all over the world when a Democrat's bombing the crap out of the world. The peace party is providing tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine because what, peace? Yeah. It's about war, baby. It's war. And what you don't understand, peace party, is all the support of Ukraine is dragging us closer towards a war with Russia that nobody wins. So the hell with the peace party. I'm with the war party.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go to war. Because I don't believe that war should be the first option. It should be the last option. If you're in the war party, you know what war means. The peace party has no freaking clue. They are clueless. Some of their hearts are in the right place. But I mean, there's no consistency.
Right.
And that's why I just spoke to people, and God bless the people who organized the Boston event that I spoke at. Yeah. Wonderful people, well-meaning people, and some of the people that were in the audience have been promoting peace forever, and they are believers.
Yeah.
But that's a peace individual, the peace party. And they complain. They all recognize. They say, we don't do vigils anymore. We can't get people out into the street. We can't do anything because nobody believes in what we're doing anymore. It's because what you're doing isn't about peace. You may think it was, but you had been hijacked by people who were using peace to promote war. Well, I'm going to use war to promote peace.
Yeah.
Because I know what war is. I know what's entailed. Therefore, I don't want to do it. And I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. You don't want to enter the boxing ring with me. Because when you do, I'm going to knock your ass out. Yeah. All right? So rather than jump in the ring, let's go to the bar and have the beer and the conversation. Let's talk this through. We don't want to fight, but not in America today, man. We get nothing but hypocrites, and I'm very disappointed. You talked about the flag. The flag to me is the symbol of 13 colonies and 50 states that came together in support of one thing and one thing only, and that's the Constitution of the United States of America. That flag is the living representation of the document that defines who and what we are as a nation, and you have every right in the world to fly it upside down because our nation right now is a nation in distress.
Yep.
I love that flag.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it so much that I'll let you burn it, and I won't kill you because you have the freedom of speech to do so.
Right.
You have the freedom of speech. I won't be happy that you're doing it. I'm not going to applaud you doing it. I'm not going to help you do it. And if given the opportunity, I will speak out against you doing it. But you have every right to do it because of freedom of speech. And therefore, I will defend your right to do it. I
Yeah.
will make sure that nobody stops you from doing it if you want to do it, because that's the country we're supposed to live in, the country where people get to express differences of opinions. We can have honest discussions and debates and discussions about our differences, but at the end of the day, I can't impose myself on you. And that's the problem with American exceptionalism. You see, what I just described is supposed to be exceptional. It's exceptional behavior. It
Hmm.
is truly exceptional behavior to tolerate free speech and all that, because we live in an intolerant world.
Hmm.
Humans are, by their very nature, intolerant of
Yeah.
opposition. But
Right.
our Constitution is supposed to create a framework of tolerance. And so we are exceptional that if we live up to the promise, but we don't live up to the promise.
Yeah.
We don't. We're hypocrites. So our exceptionalism is our hypocrisy. That's what makes America the exceptional nation in the world today, is our hypocrisy. We are so hypocritical about what we claim to be as opposed to what we really are. And that hypocrisy has never been more alive than it is today in the national security strategy of Joe Biden's administration, where he puts out that American democracy, the principle of American democracy, is that upon which all else is built. That is how we sell ourselves to the world. Really, 8 days to count a vote is how
There you
you're
go.
selling ourselves to the world.
There you go.
We put observers out in elections around the world, and we condemn them if they don't have immediate results right now. Any delay, oh my God, that
Right.
creates the perception of fraud. You can't delay it. Perception of fraud. Get your act together. Get your act together. We can't run an election to the standards that we hold other people to. We
Right.
can't run an election in our country. And you have to ask yourself why. I'm not jumping on the fraud bandwagon, because
Yeah.
no one's put together any evidence that's sustainable in court that massive fraud took place. I'm telling you, though, that one of the key things, and if you read court decisions, they talk about this. The perception of fraud is as dangerous as the fraud itself, because it undermines confidence in the election. And
Right.
to all you Democrats who say there ain't no fraud, it doesn't matter. Half of America doesn't believe you or trust you because
Correct.
it took 8 days to
Days.
count the vote.
Yeah.
It doesn't take 8 days to count the vote. It
Nope.
doesn't. Every other nation in the world runs an election where the results are known now.
France.
Why? What's going on? What's the real reason behind this? Are we truly that incompetent? Are you telling me that America, the only nation so far that put a man on the moon, can't run a damn election? Or is it because of American politics? And
Hmm.
now I think we're getting closer to the truth,
There you
because
go.
we're getting the ugly reality of gerrymandering. We're getting the ugly reality of why did the Democrats push to have so many mail-in ballots for the 2020 election?
Yeah.
Why? Answer that question and move. But and we know why, because they've even acknowledged it. Time Magazine ran an article that they probably shouldn't have run. The
Yeah.
one where they said, well, we went ahead and we violated local laws. We insisted on getting out there because we felt, because of the pandemic, this is how we could guarantee to get more Democrats to vote than Republicans. So it wasn't about a fair and free election in America. It was about gaming the system so that the Democrats could gain access to more votes than the Republicans, and you did it in an extra constitutional manner. I'm not accusing you of violating the Constitution, but you didn't comply with the Constitution. You went around the Constitution, and in my book, that is dirty, dirty, dirty. American elections, you can't have any trust and confidence in their outcome, because it takes us 8 days to count the vote.
Right.
I don't know if I covered everything you talked about, but I tried.
Well, yeah. I mean, I went on a rant. You counter ranted, and I think you pretty much covered the things that I was saying. I mean, the voting thing.
Oh,
It just.
Nazis.
Oh
Nazis.
yeah.
Let me
Okay.
touch on
Yeah.
Nazis
Definitely.
real
That's a
quick.
big one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, gosh, we fought a war against them. Remember World War II?
Yeah. Well, I that one was, yeah. I'm all on board with.
Sort of black and white,
Yeah.
good versus evil, right?
Right.
But was it? I mean, here's the funny thing. Was it really? I mean, not only did George Patton, a general occupying Germany, decide that maybe he didn't want to denazify so quickly because those damn Nazis were so efficient. Now, he did it in such a way that he got called out on it.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is the Nazis were efficient, and we never really denazified Germany. How about Krupp, the organization? How about the banks and all that stuff?
Oh
They
yeah.
stayed in place. All the people that made money from the Nazis stayed afterwards making money for NATO. So it's a seamless transition into this. But here's the big one, because it deals with Ukraine. Stepan Bandera
Hmm.
is a CIA asset. So is his organization. At first, he was a Nazi asset. He worked for the Gehlen organization. General Gehlen ran the Nazi intelligence operations in the East.
Yeah.
And as the German army withdrew, the Nazi German army withdrew, they left stay behind elements of pro German collaborators who provided intelligence back on movements, et cetera. And they would blow things up and all that. And he had this great network when the war ended. And the
Mm-hmm.
Americans came in and said, Galen, you got a big network working in the Soviet. Come on over, buddy. Come to the dark side. We love you. Don't worry. We'll just remove those Nazi insignias. We're going to clean you up, put you in a different uniform, and we'll never talk about your Nazi past again. And all the people who work for you, who use the collaborators to kill Jews, to murder people, to burn villages, we're just going to pretend none of that ever happened to. They're all going to work for you. We're going to run that organization so they can continue killing Jews, killing Russians, burning villages, because that's what the Bandera movement did from 1945 to 1954. Their number one way of killing people was to take the villagers, put them into a building, set it on fire, and machine gun anybody that came out. They did this hundreds at a time, sometimes over 1,000 people at a time. Oh no, but they're okay. But we forgot about the Nazi past there because Bandera supported us. But he was so bad that even the CIA went, he's really bad. We need to find another guy to be the front
Yeah.
of it. So Bandera went into retirement, but that organization received money from the CIA up until 1990. But I
Oh,
mean, it's not just Bandera. I mean, gosh, how did we get to the moon?
yeah.
Werner von Braun and all of his Nazi scientists that built the V2 rocket, the V1 rocket. We brought them over and they helped put us on the moon. So again, Werner, take off those SS epaulets. We clean you up nice. We pretend you're not bad. And we need Germany to function properly. We want to make the German military join NATO. Guys, you're only 10 years removed from the war
Mm-hmm.
where the Nazis were running. So who's going to command the German military? Nazi generals, but we don't call them that anymore. We remove the Nazi symbology. We take the swastika off the Iron Cross so they could still wear their Iron Cross. We don't want to talk about how you earn that Iron Cross, by the way. But no, you're now the West German army. You're respectable. You're not Nazi. And all the West German politicians, don't worry about what the hell they did. Don't ask them what they did from 1936 until 1945.
Yeah.
Those questions can't be asked. It's the same thing. Hey, Ukrainians, anybody who has Western Ukrainian roots, ask Grandpa what he did during the war and watch
Yeah.
him twitch. Watch Grandpa twitch. Want to watch Grandpa twitch? Ask him what he did during the war because Grandpa can't answer that question honestly because Grandpa was killing Jews.
Oh,
Grandpa was the guy in Lvov chasing the half naked girl down the street. You seen the photograph? The
yep.
horrible photograph of the
Yep.
woman stripped down, blood running for her lives, and behind her, like animals. It looks like something out of a scene of a lion hunt or a jackal hunt. Now, these animals wearing
Yeah.
the Bandera uniform are chasing her with a smile on their face because they know what they're going to do to her when they get her. And this is whom we support.
Yeah.
This is what we're supporting. These animals, these thugs, these non-humans, and yet we have cleaned them up. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what's happened with Azov today. We know what they are. We've called them out. Jamie Raskin has called them out,
Mm-hmm.
but now we need them. So we
Yeah.
clean them up. We remove the emblems. We wash them, and we never talk about their Nazi past again. These are freedom fighters. These are brave Ukrainians. Slava Ukraina suddenly means something it has never meant because when Bandera invented that phrase back in the 1930s, it meant white supremacist Ukrainian nationalism. It meant killing Jews, killing Slava Ukraina. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Those two phrases are the same thing as Sig Heil.
Yeah.
Try and tell me today that if I go into a theater, stand up front, and I go, Sig Heil, they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what that means. I can say, no, no, no. I had an arm cramp, and I'm just saying the German words to victory. I'm not insulting anybody. How could I possibly be insulting anybody? Because you know what it means. It
Right.
is forever linked to Adolf Hitler and Nazi ideology. And yet we have Nancy Pelosi on the floor of the United States Congress saying, Slava Ukraina. Really, Nancy? Really, Nancy?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, we have people shouting Nazi slogans in the United States Congress while they entertain Nazis in the United States Congress. What the hell is wrong with this nation? I know what's wrong with us. We're addicted to whatever it is that causes us to send $105 billion worth of U.S. taxpayer money off to support a Nazi regime in Ukraine. And as the Ukrainians devolve as they are right now, it's getting how can people continue? I can understand how an ignorant person could probably say, it's not as bad. But as they devolve, the sheepskin's coming off, and there's the wolf.
Yeah.
The wolf is right there. They're not even pretending to wear the sheepskin anymore. They're just right out there doing it. They parade their patches. The Dillwigger Brigade, the Dillwigger Brigade, convicts whose sole job was to kill Jews, brutally slaughtered Jews. They had the cross hand grenade sign, and the Ukrainian soldiers are wearing this today with pride.
Yeah.
With pride. Hey,
Yeah.
look what I got here. What, you're proud of a unit that murdered Jewish men and women and children? That's what makes you proud, you cowardly sack of manure. I mean, the Marine Corps taught me how to put a bayonet into things. I never got to do it for real.
Yeah.
God, I hope I wish I was younger, because I would love nothing more to stick a bayonet through the center mass of these Nazi swine and listen to them gurgle as their life drains from them, because they don't deserve anything less. I don't mean to be violent like this, but these guys disgust me. They disgust me. And we fund them. We pay them. That's the other thing. We pay their salaries.
Yeah.
There's nobody in Ukraine that gets a Ukrainian government salary, because Ukrainian government doesn't have any money. They can't make money. It doesn't work. It's all funded by us. We pay the salaries of these Nazis. We probably paid the cost of the embroidery of the patch they're wearing.
Oh, man, the way you put that together, the illustrations, it's just mind blowing that more Americans aren't tuned into this and understand what's happening. But it's the media. The media we've been in this kind of war for a long time, the war for real information that can help people understand and make decisions. I mean, when Marjorie Taylor Greene goes up there and says these things, people instantly say, well, but Ukraine, they're the good guys. They didn't do anything wrong. It's those Russians that just marched in there and now they're blowing stuff up and, turning their power off now. I mean, I don't understand. Where is this coming from? It's like you're hearing the gospel for the first time, and you're like, oh, I didn't hear anything about this. This first time I heard John 3:16. I never heard that before. And it's just mind blowing that, it's independent media. And I'm not boasting here, but it's little platforms like mine and others that go out there and have a guest like Scott Ritter on, or somebody who's, I know you're on with Judge Napolitano.
Better.
Great guy. I loved the judge. He's a very smart man, and he's one of those guys who just he's always talking about the Constitution, which I love. But it's bizarre. It's like Bizarro, where we have to all kind of sneak around. Hey, you're gonna have Scott Ritter on again? Yeah, I'm gonna have him on. He's gonna throw some truth bombs at you again, and you're gonna have to listen to it. And then people all over the world are tuning into this, Scott, because they can't get it anywhere else. So before I end up here, I just want to switch gears. I don't know if you heard about this story where the U.S. is deploying drone boats. I've never heard of a drone boat before. They're going to the Persian Gulf, I guess, next year. When I hear Persian Gulf, drone boats, a task force, I don't know what's going on, but apparently, we're ramping up our efforts in the region. I know, you keep hearing in the news about, hey, they're enriching more uranium or whatever, and it's getting close. There's going to be a weapon, and I think I had you on before, and you kind of swatted that back, or I might have had another guest on that said that they're not really that close, but every time they get closer to supposedly, blowing up the world, blowing up Israel, or whatever they would do with this, weapon, if they actually were able to make it, we start, ramping up and doing what we normally do. What is just a boat with a drone in it? I mean, I'm just a little naive, I guess. And you're the expert on these things, so I figured I'd let you, describe what that is and inform the audience about it.
Well, a boat drone is unmanned craft.
Okay.
And it's attractive for a number of reasons. Number one, as soon as you put a human on something, it gets big.
Yeah.
Because we ain't that small. And then you have to have all the things that go with it, like, a radio set that we have to pick up and talk into, life-sustaining things. There has to be water, there has to be store food, life jackets, all the stuff. You remove the human, you suddenly You don't have a need for a cabin. It's just literally a electronic suite with the hard drives put in compressed that are controlling. You can maximize now sensors. And the
Hmm.
big thing about the drones that I believe they want to send are intelligence capability. They're smaller. They're able to get closer to the Iranian shore. They're able to collect more intelligence from that. Um, and then the drones also can be used more aggressively because if they get sunk, you don't lose any people.
Yeah,
There's also an aspect of deniability. I can build a drone that uses exclusively Egyptian parts. I mean, look,
that's
back
interesting.
when the Navy SEALs were good, because I don't like them today. Sorry, Navy SEALs, but you suck. You're a murderous, warmongering, war criminal, uh, sustaining organization that's gone off the ramps. And until you purge everybody who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan from your ranks, I won't think anything better of you.
Wow.
You lost that right when you allowed people like I can't remember his name now. The guy who was in Iraq, the sniper that shot women and children in Mosul and bragged about it, wrote a book. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Eddie, Fast Eddie, um, Eddie something. But he,
yeah.
so I just got off the rails there. But the SEALs used to be professional, and they used to go, like, hypothetically speaking, if they would land on Libyan soil to
Hmm.
carry out an operation, they would wear boots from Eastern European countries that had a sole pattern, so that if anybody took a cast of it and went and traced it, they'd say that was from East Germany. They would smoke cigarettes on purpose, even if they didn't smoke cigarettes and leave it there because it would be paper from Bulgaria or something. So they would leave a trace. Their
Yeah,
weapons were Eastern European weapons, so if they have to fire them, uh, the ammunition and everything would be traceable back. So there's no trace. So if I wanted to do something like that with a drone, I could build a drone where all the materials and even certain design aspects came from a different country or something. So I could float that drone in, and if the Iranians captured it, they couldn't say, "Aha, an American drone." The
yeah,
problem is we're not that good anymore. You see, because we're the exceptional nation, so we don't have to be that good. We'll send in a drone that just says "Made in USA" all over it, and we don't care apparently that they capture it and all that stuff. But this is a ramping up of intelligence collection capability and operational capability.
hmm,
What we're seeing, for instance, with the British-backed Ukrainian drone strike on the Russian fleet in Sevastopol, um, I think we could be in a position now. And this is, let me tell you why we have to do this, because
hmm.
Iran has been carrying out joint training operations with China and Russia in the Gulf area and beyond Indian Ocean, et cetera. They're developing closer relations.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and so what we're doing is getting in place an intelligence and operational capability so that if we needed to carry out some sort of covert action to preempt something from happening, we could do that kind of drone strike. So we're going to be practicing sending drones in, finding the weaknesses in the Iranian defenses, collecting intelligence, doing dry rehearsals where we send a drone that doesn't have an explosive charge, just in case it gets captured, and bring it right up to the Iranian fleet and back. And we're going to test this over and over and over again. And then then when the Russian and Chinese ships come into the region, we're going to be trailing them with our drones. We're building up a drone warfare capability because I think there's people that are saying that we may have to go to war in the Persian Gulf against not only the Iranians but their Chinese and Russian allies. But if we do that, it needs to be covert in nature and deniable in nature, and that's what the drones are going to give us an opportunity to do.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like Iran, China, and Russia. They're concerned that there's yet another alliance that we're probably um, we're probably creating these
But we
alliances.
created it. We
Yeah,
created it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but
Yeah.
I mean, as far as how close, though, you always hear in the media just as they're Iran. They're always, for how many years, Scott? They've said Iran is. This is Sean Hannity every night on his show. They're building. It's close. It's almost ready. They're going to launch it. They're going to always launch it on Israel too. It's going to be Israel is the target, and we need to go in there and preempt and stop. I mean, I mean, I've read reports. I think even the Pentagon said that no, they're not really that close to getting a nuclear weapon. What's your knowledge about it?
Well, let me put it this way. According to Sean Hannity, I'm this close to shooting heroin. I'm this close to shooting
You
heroin.
are?
But I mean, I would have to go out and find out where heroin is sold.
I got it. I
I'd
got
have
it.
to find out how much it cost. I'd have to buy it, and I'd have to figure out how the hell. I'd have to get a syringe. I'd have to get all the things together, and then and only then could I shoot heroin. But according to Sean Handy, I'm this close, implying I have the needle right here, the needle and the spoon. I think that's what it is. I don't know. Do you take a spoon, heat it up, brought in a needle? I watch a lot of movies. That appeared to be what they do. But according to Sean, I'm this close. Now, Sean's not accusing. I'm just trying to be creative here with my analogy.
Right.
Um, Ukraine has a nuclear program,
Mm-hmm.
and that nuclear program enriches uranium.
Yeah.
And from the Israeli perspective, any enrichment capability means they have an inherent nuclear weapons capability because they have resolved one of the big, stumbling or big obstacles to a nuclear weapon, enriched uranium.
Mm-hmm.
But you enrich uranium to make fuel,
Yeah.
to do medical isotopes, things of that nature. So, the Israelis, and if the Iranians decide they want to have a nuclear submarine,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
that means that they're going to have to enrich uranium up to whatever the level is that the onboard reactors. Remember, an onboard reactor on a submarine has to be a little bit more powerful than it's smaller.
Yeah.
So it will use a higher enrichment. So I'm in my 68%. I know people who are watching this are going to Google and they say, "No, Scott, it was 63.3%. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." It's a higher percentage. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not a naval nuclear reactor design specialist. But the point is, that's permitted.
Yeah.
And, it's not a nuclear weapon. In order to build a weapon, they have to actually design the weapon, get the whole. I mean, is it going to be a uranium gun weapon? So you have a mass here, you take out a plug, and then you fire it in and try and create the critical mass that produces the fission. So you're going to be a plutonium, compression weapon or uranium compression weapon, which you have to get all the explosives perfect and the timing, and then you have to build the system to hold it. It has to be small enough to go into a missile. There has to be safety features built in because no nation that builds nuclear weapons is suicidal. So, right. And all that takes time, and it hasn't happened, isn't happening. So the idea that Iran is like ready to, and how do we know this? Because even the Biden administration, which is doing all its stupidity about Iran and nuclear weapons, has come out and said there's no evidence that Iran is pursuing a nuclear weapons program. No evidence whatsoever, because they're not. They're not. Now, could they in the future? Anything can happen. Yeah. But they have passed fatwas, religious edicts, that have said that weapons of mass destruction are haram, forbidden under the Islamic law. And when you are now I know that there's a lot of hypocrisy. For instance, the Catholic Church says that priests shouldn't diddle little boys, but we know that priests diddle little boys, and the Catholic Church protects them. So, is it possible that an Iranian theocrat could say weapons of mass destruction are haram, but in secret they're diddling nuclear reactors? Who knows what they're doing? There's no evidence of it, unlike the Catholic priests, where there's a lot of evidence. So I'm sorry if I'm offending Catholics, but on that case, they deserve to be offended on that case. Yeah. There's no evidence that Iran is pursuing a nuclear weapons program. But we're in a dangerous situation because we have endorsed the Israeli position that says any nuclear enrichment is a potential nuclear weapons capability. But here's the, remember, American exceptionalism, we're exceptional by the level of our hypocrisy. So Barack Obama entered the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, in 2015. We negotiated that allegedly in good faith, by the way. And the whole premise of the JCPOA is that Iran is permitted to have a nuclear enrichment program, which is related to peaceful civilian use, and that Iran will eventually be able to operate this program in accordance with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, meaning no restrictions. We don't restrict any other nation in the world when it comes to peaceful nuclear energy. Japan can pump out as much plutonium as it possibly can. I mean, they just crank out plutonium because of the nature of their reactors. But no, Iran is the only one we've constrained. But even those constraints, they had to have what's called sunset clauses.
Yeah.
So we constrain them while we build confidence in the Iranian system that it's peaceful. And then after a certain number of years, Iran will transition. But here's the hypocrisy, because
Again.
Obama, well, it's not really hypocrisy. He was honest about it.
Yeah.
Got to give him that. In April 2015, before the July 2015 agreement was finalized, he said, on the sunset clauses, understand this. We're just buying ourselves time. And when it comes time for the sunset clauses to expire, we will re-engage and reconsider where we want to go. Oh, so the agreement isn't an agreement. It's just a placeholder. And you can criticize Donald Trump all you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I do.
Yeah.
I criticize his decision to get out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. But he was the most honest president we've ever had about this, because he came in and he looked at it and he said, wait a minute, my CIA guys telling me that Iran's pursuing or had pursued a nuclear weapons program.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they've never admitted it, and we never confirmed that it stopped and shut down. We never identified what it was. But then we signed this agreement still saying that they had a nuclear weapons program that was using a nuclear enrichment program to build fissile material for a bomb, but we don't know anything about it. We shut it down. But now we're going to allow them to ramp up the sunset clauses that give them unlimited enrichment capability. All the while we're saying they had a nuclear weapons program and we don't know what happened to it. That's stupid. And you know what? On that, I agree with Donald Trump. If what the CIA was saying was true, then this is a bad agreement. The problem is the CIA even acknowledges they lied straight up. There isn't. And today they've come a little bit more clean on it. But the policy of the United States is never to allow Iran to reach the sunset clause termination phase, because once that happens, they get to put all the centrifuges they want into operation, produce as much as they want. But the United States made a fatal mistake. You see, in negotiating this treaty, remember, the Americans always talked about we need snapback sanctions. Snapback sanctions.
Yeah.
Because you Iranians cheat. You're cheating sacks of manure. So what we're going to do is we're going to build this clause that says if you cheat, we can withdraw from our obligations. So if we find that you're cheating, we can, reimpose the sanctions and all that. And the Iranians went, really? You want Article 24 and 25 like that? Okay, yeah, we'll sign that. We like that. Because what did the Iranians do? Trump pulls out like an idiot. Then the Europeans bow to American pressure and say, well, we're not going to fulfill our obligations for the economic interactivity that's supposed to take place. And the Iranians went, but you're cheating. You're obligated to do this other thing. But we can't because of U.S. secondary sanctions. Our businesses are afraid. The Iranians are saying, we don't care. You're obligated to do this. You're cheating. And after a year, they went, oh, remember those two clauses the Americans put in to hold us accountable? We're reversing it, baby. We're using it against you. As long as you're in non-compliance, we're just going to start lifting all the restrictions you've placed on us. Till today, there are no restrictions. So everything that we were afraid was going to happen during the sunset clauses is happening right now. They're building advanced centrifuges. They're putting them in place. They're operating them. They're enriching. They're building up stockpiles, and it's over. The JCPOA is over, and even though it's not officially over, it's dead. And what's going to happen now is Iran's going to move forward, and Israel's in a panic. They just put Netanyahu back in power. So Netanyahu is going to pressure the Americans. And so the Americans are going to play stupid games in the Persian Gulf, preparing for a conflict with Iran that hopefully will never happen. But you know what? I'm a member of the war party. I say, get ready to go to war against Iran, but exhaust every avenue short of war to prevent war before going to war, which means if we legitimately do that, we'll never go to war against Iran. I'm the war party, baby, and we're never going to go to war against Iran if you do what I ask you to do. But we're incapable of that in America because we're the peace nation that goes to war. I'd rather be the war nation that never goes to war.
Yeah, well, that's the armed but neutral, or so armed that nobody's going to mess with you. But peace through strength, Ronald.
But it's
Reagan.
not just that. I don't believe in intimidation. I mean, I believe in deterrence. Again, if there's nothing wrong with, back when I was younger, going to the gym,
Yeah.
boxing, all that stuff, walking down the street, confident in my ability to defend my wife if called upon to do so, but
Right.
doing everything possible to avoid the fight. If I
Yeah.
see problem down the street, to take a detour. If I'm in a bar and I see people getting drunk and obnoxious, leave the bar. Do
Yeah.
all the smart things to avoid, not to stand up and go, I'm America. I kick your ass.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Be so strong and confident that you avoid the fight. But if somebody wants to follow me, chase me into an alley, one of us is walking it out, and it ain't going to be you. That's the America I believe in. You want to push me into an alley, I'll win that fight every single time. But I don't want to go in the alley. I will avoid the bar. I'm going to avoid. So if Ukraine and Russia want to have a little collaboration over there,
Yeah.
that's your business, guys.
Right.
I'm going to be over here, and I will be talking to both of you to try and get it out, but I'm not sending one side $57 billion while I sanction the other side. The best way to resolve the Ukrainian-Russian conflict is to be the neutral outside observer saying, hey, but you know what? If we were that, there wouldn't be a conflict because we wouldn't have asked Ukraine to join NATO. We wouldn't have expanded NATO up to Russia, or we wouldn't have carried out a policy of regime change in Russia for the past 2 decades. I live in a fantasy world, apparently.
Yeah. It's 100% correct. Fantasy. So we'll just end up on this, Scott, and it's a pretty big one. A couple of months ago, I think I had you on the show, and we were talking about, timetable. Russia's starting to be a little bit more aggressive with the infrastructure in Ukraine. I think you had said next spring sometime maybe this thing could be wrapped up over in Ukraine. Has your outlook changed on that? Do you think it's sooner, later? Is it going to go on? Like the United States keeps saying, it'll go on until it's over, and we're going to continue to just keep writing these blank checks. And the phrase "as long as it takes" is somebody who would like this to stop, so maybe we could get some money over here in Southwest Florida for real infrastructure needs. Which again, it's never going to happen if we continue to have the peace party, as you like to call it. Any predictions? Any revised predictions on what the timetable is over in Russia for this conflict to wind itself down?
My assessment has always been premised on a couple factors. One, that no matter what aid the Ukrainians get, they're not going to win this fight. They will have some tactical victories, they'll have some operational successes, and they have. But it will be Pyrrhic in nature, and they'll burn through their resources. And the burn rate of Ukrainian resources on the battlefield is far greater than the replacement rate of new men and material that comes from NATO and the United States. And Russia's job is to keep that burn rate high, and Russia's doing a good job of that. Russia's other job is to keep their burn rate low, meaning what they're using. They've been successful in that. People don't understand what Kherson was all about.
Yeah.
It was an operational consolidation of defenses to reduce the Russian burn rate. They weren't willing to sacrifice 3,000 men or more to defend a piece of territory that didn't need to be defended at this point in time. They pulled that back. Now, the Russians are also in a resource management game. As Ukraine burns down their resources and Russia preserves their resources, Russia is going to be dramatically reinforced sometime next month with 10 to 15 division equivalents. I don't know how the Russians are going to choose to organize them. Are they going to be divisions? Are they going to be brigades? Are they going to be individual battalion tactical groups that are going to be inserted into additional grades? I don't know. That's up to Russia. I don't get to do that. But it's going to be equivalents. Average Russian divisions, 10 to 12,000 men strong. 220,000 troops, 213,000 troops being trained up. You can do the math. Divide 213,000 by 10 or 12,000, and that's how many division equivalents you're going to get. I'm not making this number up. And they're going to come in, and it's going to dramatically alter the reality because the winter is going to be there. The ground is going to be supportive of large-scale offensive operations, and Ukraine won't have anything that can stop them, and NATO can't reinforce Ukraine in time. So it's going to be a one-sided fight. Now, Russia has also said that it will fully implement the objective set in the special military operation. That means demilitarization, denazification, demilitarization defined as removing all NATO influence from the Ukrainian military. Now, the Ukrainian military has become a de facto proxy of NATO. It means the total elimination of the Ukrainian military. Russia says our objectives haven't changed. I believe them. So this conflict will go until the Ukrainian military is destroyed or surrendered and dismantled. Denazification means just that, getting rid of all Nazi elements. The Russians have called the Zelensky government a Nazi regime. The hint being that this conflict won't end until Zelensky is removed. But it also has to deal with Western Ukraine and that problem. Here we have an issue because while I believe Russia will have sufficient military force to accomplish the destruction of the Ukrainian military and to include the occupation of at least 4 more major Ukrainian territories that could be incorporated into Russia. That's Odessa, Nikolaev, Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk. And again, that's just a potential. I'm not saying Russia's going to do that because Putin gave an interesting speech. He was speaking about in Valdai, and a Hungarian journalist asked him about Odessa, and it was sort of a weird question. He said, "I've always liked the city of Odessa, and I plan on visiting it. When do you recommend I visit Odessa?" And Putin said, "Sooner rather than later." Meaning you might want to go now, although now's not a good time because the power's all out. So you may have missed your window of opportunity.
Yeah.
But he then threw out something, and the exact translation is much more clever than what I'm about to say. But the concept was that Odessa can either be the place where peace is made, or the place where the decision for ending Ukraine is made. It's up to Ukraine. That Odessa is that, and what that means is that Ukraine can come up with a solution that allows it to keep Odessa and therefore continued access to the sea, which is essential for their survivability as a nation, or Ukraine can make a decision that has Russia take Odessa. Russia is going to be in a position to take Odessa starting next month, and Ukraine can't stop them. So my belief is that Ukraine is not going to do the right thing because they're not governed by smart people. And Russia will carry an offensive that's going to take those 4 territories. They're going to decisively destroy the Ukrainian army. I believe at some point in time, the chief of the general staff of Ukraine, General Z, whose name I can't pronounce, is going to remove Zelensky from power. Already you see Zelensky nervous. He's telling the general to lower your social media profile. He doesn't like the fact that the New Yorker magazine wrote a glowing piece about him that was sort of backhanded critical towards Zelensky. Zelensky's being embarrassed by the West right now because he embarrassed them. And Zelensky's not delivering on the goods anymore. The billions of dollars that aren't coming, Congress could slow it down. So therefore, there's no reason to keep him in power. So I think the generals are going to remove him, and then the generals are going to be compelled, because look at what happened in the Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict. The Armenian politicians were screaming, "We're going to fight to the last man." And the military went, "We're coming up to that point where there's not going to be anybody alive if we keep this war going because we can't win."
Right.
And I think the Ukrainian military is going to look at the situation and say, "We can't win." Russia, what do we got to do to stop this conflict? That negotiation will be difficult, but I think Russia is going to get them to that point where the military is defeated sometime by late spring, early summer of next year. There's just because when you just run basic algorithms through your head of how this war plays, I know you probably need to go, but I used to do, and before the Gulf War started, I was at the Marine Corps War Fighting Center, and I ran this system called Janus, Janus. It's a big war game. And I went and I got all the photographs of the front lines with the Iraqis, and I put all the Iraqi units in place, and we programmed them all to have certain fighting capabilities and all this stuff. And then we built the Marine units, and we practiced, seeing which part of the Iraqi line would be weakest and what configuration would work best. And when you load it all up and you hit enter, then you just get to watch them come in and you get to watch the fight occur. And you can go fast. Marines lose. Oh, shit. Okay. Oh, darn. How'd that happen? Then you build it up. Marines win, but not very big. Oh, and so you keep tinkering until. So my brain is actually programmed to think like this. I'm a Janus computer up here, and I load all the data in it of the Ukrainian side and the Russian side, and I just sit here and go. And when I do that with what the Russians are bringing in, what the Ukrainians aren't bringing in, it comes out decisive Russian victory every single time in a very short time period. Now, the Russians, I'm programming the Russians. The Russians may be putting in a different program. So, who knows how it's going to end up, but there's no reason why Russia doesn't win this thing militarily by late spring, early summer. That's when I think the Ukrainian military is going to realize that they have to preserve as much of the nation as they can.
Yeah.
And they will be asking for terms. And the most difficult term will be denazification, which requires the Ukrainians to do something proactive in Western Ukraine to get rid of the ideology of Stepan Bandera, to redo the constitution of Ukraine so that not only is Bandera not the national hero, and Ukraine is obligated to join NATO, just the opposite. The Ukraine will be neutral in perpetuity. They will never be allowed to join NATO, and that Bandera's ideology is forever banned by punishment of law. But I do believe that the Ukrainian generals will have to do something like that, which will bring up the very interesting phase of this conflict, which is the inter-Ukrainian conflict, because I don't think this thing ends without a Ukrainian civil war where the Ukrainian military turns on the Nazis and slaughters them.
Oh,
And at that point in time,
wow.
I will volunteer to serve in the Ukrainian military so that I can have the pleasure of stabbing a Ukrainian Nazi with a bayonet over and over again. I hate these people. They brought so much harm to the world. They brought so much harm to their own people. They brought so much harm to Russia, and they've hurt my country too. They've hurt my country physically because the citizens of Florida aren't getting the aid they need because that money's gone to Ukraine. They've hurt my country from an intellectual standpoint. Our country has been poisoned with Russophobia, and to believe that Slava Ukraina means something nice, it doesn't. And they've hurt us morally, where we are on the wrong side of history. We used to like to kill Nazis, and now we're underwriting a Nazi cause in Ukraine. And I am saddened, I am sickened, I am disgusted